Hi, my name is Gerry and I am a backflow valve technician. In this video I am going to show you how to repair a backflow valve. I had a business testing and repairing backflow valves for over 11 years. I am certified to test backflow valves, and I am also certified to repair them. I've gone to school for both of those things. I'm now retired, but I'm going to show you how to do the things that I used to do that hopefully you can do it yourself and save you quite a bit of money. It isn't very difficult and you don't need a lot of tools, but you can do it yourself if you pay attention. It is the middle of summer here and I have fans on in my garage, so you're going to have to bear with me because you'll probably hear the fans in the background, but it's too hot out here to do this without the fans. There are several kinds of backflow valves. Here are three. This is called a double check valve assembly. This is called a pressure vacuum breaker, PVB. This is commonly referred to as a RPZ, which is a reduced pressure backflow valve assembly. I am going to show you in this video how to repair this one. It is the most complicated. Generally, these are the tools you will need to do this repair. A small straight bladed screwdriver, a screwdriver that has Phillips and straight blade on it, a 1/2 inch socket with a ratchet, a 1/2 inch box wrench, a toothbrush for cleaning. This is a 10 inch crescent wrench, adjustable wrench. The plastic bin to put water in so you can wash parts. This is a food grade lubricant. You cannot use oil-based or petroleum-based lubricants in this because this affects your water which you drink, and that kind of a lubricant from petroleum will deteriorate your seals. And this is a secret tool. I'll tell you about that later. This is generally what you are going to replace in this backflow valve. A diaphragm like this. These are called discs, and this is a smaller disc that goes inside the relief valve. When you buy parts like this, they generally will come with a small package of food grade lubricant like this. I buy mine in a large volume, put it in this little container. That's why I don't have the box that came in. One other thing you might need, if you're old like me, or if you just can't kneel on without bothering your knees, or sometimes the backflow valve is an area there might be crushed stone around it and you're kneeling in some place that's a rough surface, this is priceless. It's just a garden helper. This valve is an RPZ, reduced pressure backflow valve. It works so that this component and this component here together hold back a certain amount of pressure that keeps an opening that's in here closed. This is called the vent, and what people will often find is there's water dripping out of this vent, and that's what we're trying to fix. There's also another seal inside here like this. There's one here just like this. It's called a disc. Inside here is a small disc and a diaphragm. The diaphragm can rip, tear over time. These seals get deformed. This is an old seal. See how it's grooved? It's full of sand and all kinds of things. This is what they look like when they're new. Let me show you how to take this apart. Now, assuming this is at your house, connected with water coming in and going out on this end. How do you know the direction of water flow? All backflow valves have an arrow somewhere on their frame pointing the direction of water flow. You can see it here. So you're going to need to turn off the water that's coming into the backflow valve. You turn it off here by turning this 90 degrees. That will stop water coming in. Any water pressure that's still here will continue to go towards your house. You can turn it off here too if you want. That doesn't make much difference. It's here that you need it off. Now, sometimes you're better off turning it off here also. It's hard to do here and holding it like this, but you turn it the same way, 90 degrees, because when you flush the valve, you don't want any of the bad stuff to go towards the house. These are called test cocks. There's one normally here. This one's missing, and I have a plug in it. This is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And I connect to these ports with a machine called a differential pressure gauge. This is how I determine the pressures that the different components are holding back inside the backflow valve to know whether or not it is doing the job correctly. And when you do the inspection, it has to hold back a certain amount or you will not pass your test. In that case, it's got to be repaired like we are going to do. Okay, the first thing you're going to do when you get there, turn off the water. Now you want to release all the pressure that's inside the valve. And you're going to get a straight blade screwdriver. You're going to turn these screws on the top 90 degrees so that they allow the pressure to come out. Now remember, if you're kneeling in front of this, it's coming right at you. So move over to the side till you get all the water out. Turn all of these open and the water pressure will come out and water will drop out of the vent. That's normal. Now you have this empty. Now you're going to take, now remember this is going to stand up normally. You're going to take your crescent wrench. You're going to put it on here, tighten it to adjust the right size, and you're going to go counterclockwise as you face it to get it loose. You're going to do the same thing down here, counterclockwise. You only got to go a couple of turns generally. Sometimes you have to screw it all the way off with the wrench, but once you get it off loose, you can generally turn it and get it off this way. Something that's critical. These two components are spring loaded. This one is check valve 1, this is check valve 2, and this is the relief valve. Check valve 1 has a 5-pound spring underneath it, which holds back 5 pounds of pressure. This one has a 1-pound spring on it. So when you take this off, be careful and kind of hang on to it. See how my hand popped out? Don't let this go flying all over the place. You can't lose these parts. So here is a spring, here's the cap, here's what's called a poppet, and that's inside. Those components, throw in your bucket of water, just let them soak. Inside here, I don't know how well you can see it, is a seat down there, the black thing. This is what a seat looks like. The seat is made of plastic, it's threaded, it's got an O-ring. Hopefully you're not going to try to deal with that ever. That isn't, you need a special tool to get that out. It's not as easy as you think to get it back in. What you want to make sure when you look at that is that this surface that you're looking at is not cracked or chipped or broken or missing. If it is, this is a much bigger problem than you think you have. The way how this works is this poppet with that spring behind it seats against here, and it makes a seal. If it doesn't make the seal, water pressure goes past and your backflow valve will leak and you fail your test. This is what one that's worn looks like. See how the groove, that's from pushing against that spot. This has been flipped over and been done on this side, but on this side you can still see all of the debris that's in that little groove. That's sand and little particles and all that kind of stuff. That is what causes this to not make a good seal anymore. That's why it's leaking. So we're going to replace that. We're going to clean everything and we're going to replace it. Now, generally the inside of here is filthy, and there's sand or debris that's on that that seat. Well, remember this secret thing? This is a 1-inch piece of PVC pipe with a scrubby like this. I bring it around, I cut it to length, and then put some duct tape on here so it overlaps. And then I tuck the part that's overlapping down inside here. The part I'm trying to get is a rough surface here that matches this surface here to be able to get down there and clean it. What you don't want to do is take a screwdriver and start chiseling on that kind of stuff, or picking at it too much. You can do it a little bit, but don't damage this plastic seat or this will never work. And like I said, then you got to replace this. You need special tools for that. What you do is get this wet, stick it in here, wiggle it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and tip it back and forth to side as you're twisting it. And you're going to find when you get done, a good portion of all that stuff that's sitting on the seat is now gone. So what you then do is stand back. Remember, you got these open. You can even close these again now. Otherwise, this water's coming at you. Flip this on, and you'll see a whole burst of water come out. And if you watch closely, it's generally dark colored water. It's all the bad stuff that's in here that you're pushing out. Turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on a couple of times with this cap off, and flush it all out. Cleanliness cannot be stressed enough. This needs to be clean to make everything work. Okay, so you're going to use that here. I'm also going to do the same thing when we do it down here, and I'll show you that later. You might even take the toothbrush and run it around here, run around this surface. You want any debris that's in here or in the grooves or threads to get off. Again, flush it out so that when we get all done, this goes on here easily. Now, this is called a poppet, and it has a brand new seal in it. But what you'll often find is the seal looks like that inside there. I've already replaced this one, but let me show you how you get this off. That's a Phillips. Now let me give you another hint. I usually take a couple of towels and I put them right here on the ground to put all my parts on so that I don't drop them in the grass or in the whatever I'm around, so I don't lose these parts, because you cannot go to the hardware store and buy these parts. Unscrew this counterclockwise, and again, don't lose the screws. That screw comes off, and a washer. This isn't just a washer, it's a special washer. If you rub this on the edge, this side is smooth. If you rub this side, it's very rough. This side has been smooth by the company when they built this, and I'll show you why. When you put this back on, you have to put the smooth side towards the disc so that when it screws in place, over time with the moisture and things like that, this disc will start to bulge out a little. If you have the rough side down, it will cut the disc. You have to have the smooth side facing down. So if you were to open, this is something that I used to find all the time when I was doing a repair. Many times people would be doing this themselves and then realize, I can't do this because I don't know what I'm doing. Or they'd find some yahoo who claimed, oh, I can fix that for you, and then it would not work. I'd open it up and I'd find that this washer is on the wrong way. Well, you learn this in school to put this on the right way. If whoever did this either wasn't paying any attention in school, is a terrible technician, or they really didn't ever go to school and they're just kind of winging it. So if you see that, you know that somebody's been in here who didn't know what they were doing. Now, you got to take that bad disc out. It's bad on one side, but if it's never been flipped over, like this has been flipped over, you can see the groove on both sides. If it's never been flipped over and you get this out and it's not too bad, it will fit flat and leave you on the bottom, back in here, and it will leave you a flat surface to start all over again. So you can do this without having to go buy lots of parts sometimes. Otherwise, you're going to have to buy all these new parts, new diaphragm, new disc, the seals, and a new disc, and that kind of stuff. Now, to get this out, if you're going to save it, it's critical to get it out of here. There's a way to get this out. You don't want to go on the edge and start prying. You'll peel it up and it will rip it. Kind of pull back on it in the middle till you get a little bit of an opening there. Try to be easy about doing this. Get it in, wiggle it a little, get to the bottom, and slowly work this up. But don't rip it and don't scratch this surface. When you get this up, there's probably going to be sand and things like particles attached to this. You're going to have to clean that off to make it, but you want it, don't be gouging at it. You could take this a little bit lightly and screw it, go like this. But if you damage this, the water pressure will slide underneath here, and again, it'll start to leak. So get it cleaned up. Get your disc like this. If this is your bad disc, but it was smooth like this on the other side and you're going to keep it, while it's wet, I go like this, hold it like this, and you can see the little stuff that start coming out. And eventually you can work out all that kind of stuff. What you don't want to do is start grinding out with a screwdriver to get it all out, because this will not then fit flat anymore. Again, you're trying to salvage a part that's been in here a long time. You got to be easy with it and get it cleaned. And if that's what you're going to do and not put in a brand new seal like this one, you're going to put it back in, set it down, take the washer. Remember, smooth side wants to go against the disc. Put this back in, screw it down, tighten it. You're not going to go on it cranking on it. That's only plastic. I want to show you what different discs look like in different conditions of discs. This is a disc. See all the ground in groove here with all the debris that's in there? See it on the other side? It's even worse. If you take that disc out of your backflow valve and it looks like that, you flip it over, it looks like that, you're not going to be able to get this to stop dripping and to pass a test. See that if you clean a disc, you get a disc out and it looks like this, that groove is starting there, but probably isn't too bad. You can clean it. You flip it over, see how this side's never been really flipped before. Smooth, so when it lays back down, this will seal again. Here's another example. It's bad like this on one side with all kinds of debris in it with a big groove in it, and you flip it over after you get it out carefully by not damaging it, and it looks like that, you're going to be able to put this back down and seal with it. It will work. Here's another example. One side with a groove. The other side smooth because it's never been flipped over. That's what you're looking for. A new set of discs look like this on both sides. That's what you're going to have to replace this thing with, because it will not work. Okay? So at least that way you can look at what you have and tell whether or not it will work. Now, you also have to clean all the rest of this off. And that's where the toothbrush came in. So before you put the disc back on, clean this all. And I'll show you why. If you don't get this clean, this rides through this. There has been times that now this is a 5-pound spring. It's a pretty heavy spring. I have taken that out of there, and this is so wedged in there that when I take it out, this comes out like this as a package. Well, it doesn't work. This has to go back and forth to do its job. That's why it's leaking, because this thing is so bad. Even if your seal was still good, the problem is that there's debris inside here. So take your toothbrush, work your way in and out of here, make sure this is all clean, rinse it out, work it out, clean all this around your threads, just don't damage your O-ring, rinse it off to the point where this goes in and out pretty easily. It's got to not stick, okay? So now we have this clean. The spring, 5-pound spring, is generally coated with junk on it. Clean it all off. Set it, throw these back in the water. Just let that soak. You got this? You're going to clean this up already. The O-ring is going to go back on here. See, this goes on here? This compresses the O-ring. It's not like two pieces of PVC pipe that you're screwing together that are welding themselves by the mechanical process. This goes on here and it compresses against here. Now you want to lubricate this O-ring so it slides as it's screwing in and doesn't bunch up and curl up and then either become torn or it doesn't make a good seal. You take your lubricant. Remember, this is food grade lubricant. Take a small amount, about, I don't even know if you can even see that much on my finger. And you rub it on the O-ring. Rub it, move it, rub it, move it, rub it, move it, rub it, move it. You only put in a tiny amount. Okay? And that's what you have to do. I keep rags handy all the time. Now, one critical thing. Never, ever, ever. If you're not paying attention, pay attention now. Never, ever, ever put lubricant on these parts. Never, ever. It will not function well. You'll have problems forever. You don't do that. These are not made to be lubricated. They have nothing to do that they would need to be lubricated for. That would only attract dirt and things like that. The O-rings go on there. Now let me show you. You've got all these parts in your water, just soaking. You got them all cleaned and you're all sitting there. So let's open the other part. Check valve 2. Remember, it's spring loaded. Be careful when it comes out. It comes out with this spring and the poppet, which is usually covered with dirt and things like that, debris. And you're going to do this exact same thing here. If inside here it's all filthy, first of all check the seat to make sure it's not damaged. If it is, you're in trouble. Do the same idea with this. Clean it all good. Take a toothbrush, run around the thing there, all your threads around here, inside here, inside here. Clean your poppet up. all over, clean it all off, take that off, make sure you don't lose the washer or the screw, clean that surface underneath, all that stuff, put your new poppet back in, or flip it over if it was good shape, just like we did on the other one. First, rinse everything off, make sure this slides in and out with no problem. Take your lubricant, run it on the O-ring, get it all covered like that, and take this everything here, throw it in your bucket of water. Now, one thing to remember, I don't know if you can see the difference in the thickness of the wires. This is a 1 pound spring that goes in check valve 2. This is a 5 pound spring, it goes in this one. If you mix them up, this will not work. Very critical. Okay? We have this disassembled and this disassembled. Check valve 1, check valve 2. Now we've got to do this. This is called a relief valve. And inside here is another spring, a diaphragm like this, and a small disc like this. You're going to take, this is a Wilkins 975XL, and it's a 1-inch valve. You've probably seen large backflow valves. I'm in Central Florida. They're on the sides of the roads, around shopping centers and things like that. Generally, they're all these kinds of a backflow valve, but they are huge. They work the exact same way. They get fixed the same way. They get tested the same way. They're just bigger, and this one's smaller. So for this size, you need a 1/2 inch socket, and we're going to take off these screws. Get them all loose. I try to do them in a staggered pattern. Now, remember, this is not attached to pipe, so it's sometimes not so easy to get to do that, because there's nothing holding the valve. And sometimes you're around things that this doesn't fit in very well. Use the same 1/2 inch wrench to do this way manually. You get them all loose, but leave 2 still in, almost all the way out, but 2 of them directly across from the other. And I usually do this one on the other side, and I take all the rest out. And I'll explain why in a minute. Now generally, see the way how this came loose? It's because I've had this apart and there's a new diaphragm inside and things like that. But generally this will stick to itself. Sometimes it'll come off. That's why these are here, because there's a spring in there and I don't want this cover come flying off and now you've lost all your parts in the lawn. But if it's like this and it won't come out, it doesn't come out by itself, you take your screwdriver with the flat part on it, try and catch an edge and tap on it. If you got a hammer, that's fine. If not, you just tap on it in a couple of spots and work it, and it will, you'll see it pop off. Once that comes off, hold this in, take these last 2 screws all the way out. Whatever you do, don't lose the screws. You can't buy them at the store. And bring this off slowly. And you're going to grab the spring and this whole assembly. This is a 2-pound spring. Now, the way how this works, that diaphragm sits in here and lets this go back and forth. And water comes in to this system through that little hole. That little hole has to line up with that little hole, and you can't have the diaphragm off to one side. If you put it on that hole or then these holes aren't going to line up. You could, by accident, put it on totally. Well, let me not waste your time. Make sure when we put it back together that hole is there. Now, this sometimes will not come out. You gotta wiggle it and wiggle it and wiggle it. There's an O-ring here that's kind of catching on some debris here. So when you take this apart, it's generally got crap on it. You're gonna take that with the toothbrush, clean this surface, clean all this surface. You can't really get into that hole very much, but you got to make sure that the passage is open. So I put it up to my mouth and I blow, and if the air goes through, then you know it got stuff out of it. Sink it in the water, clean it, that kind of thing, set it aside. Here is the diaphragm. The diaphragm goes in like this. This O-ring generally will be fine. Sometimes you might have to replace that, but generally the O-ring, you just have to, once you get that cleaned, take this same stuff when we get all done, and we're just going to put a light coating on that O-ring. But we're going to do that last. So you're going to take your screwdriver with the Phillips head, and you're going to unscrew this. Now this is a long screw, but it's a small washer that's there. Again, don't lose them. Screw this out. Do this over your towel, whatever it is. Kind of catch the edge of that and get that over there. Take that, set it aside, don't lose it. And then take your straight blade screwdriver, do the same thing. If you're going to save this O-ring, or this seal, this disc, remember it's a tiny little one like this, and you're going to slowly pry this up, get it on the inside, slowly move this, get it up, and slowly get this out without damaging the other surface. Clean all that off. Rinse everything off. Well, you've now got this apart, so that means that this will come separated. Remember, this goes in here. You see the little, you may have these, that little pattern? That's left over from this side of the diaphragm. See how it's black on this side? It's got little lines on this side. Those lines have to face this plate when we put it back together. So you just separate them. The only thing that was holding them together was that screwdriver. Clean all this off. Take this diaphragm. Generally, if you get to this far and you're going to do this, you're generally going to throw this out. But sometimes you're going to check it, make sure it's clean. Don't be too rough with this. Just make sure it's got no pinholes in it or anything like that. Let's say you're going to put that back together. Remember, the lines go this direction. Put this on. Put this on. Make sure your hands are clean. Take the screw. Oop, forgot the. Alright, this is the best side. I'm going to put this down. Make sure it gets in there. Make sure your hands are clean so you're not getting grease all over that. Holding this from the bottom, push this in and get the screw started. Once you get that screw going, bring it on down. Now, I don't know if you can see that, I'm already starting to squash that disc. Don't go too crazy, you're just kind of snugging it there. You don't want that to crush that disc so much that the disc starts to fold up like that, because then it won't make a seal. So this is ready to go. This is ready to go. You've cleaned all that off. You took a little lubricant, you put it on this O-ring. I took even a little bit of lubricant on my pinky, and I put it around that surface on the inside. Then I kind of get these, sometimes it's a little bit to wiggle it and pop it. Set it aside. We still have not cleaned here. Let's see if we got some debris in there. This plastic thing is the same thing that was inside like this in here. But this has a cage around it because it captures this round thing as it goes in. Many times this is broken in a couple of spots. You need to replace that if it's damaged. But again, take your toothbrush, something soft, clean it as best you can. Clean all this, all I can. Clean all this, all that surface area. And then rinse this out. Throw water on it, whatever you're going to do, whatever you're going to get it to go. Now, at this point, you still have to make sure that the water comes out of that hole so it can go in and match up with this hole. Well, if I turn the water on right now, water will squirt this way, back out. So just stand over to, like in front of it again. Just slightly turn it on and you'll see water come out. You have to verify that there's water coming out of there. Okay, assuming there's water coming out and we're good to go, we're ready to put all of this back together now. All right, we're going to put the relief valve back together. Don't forget your spring. Now, just clean off the spring, but I don't do anything different to this spring. These other springs, I do, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. The spring goes over this end. Get your, well, let me show you. On this side of this plate, there's this little bump. Where the bump is where that hole is. That allows the thing to be drilled all the way through, to let water go through and come out here. So look for your tiny little hole that goes for that and line it up with there, okay? Then put 2 screws, one on each side, hold them in place. Now the rubber can't move. Put this on here, and then put that spring over that cage. Now this sometimes gets tricky. Push in and hold in with your thumb. Find the hole and get the screw started. Sometimes the diaphragm gets a little bit, there it goes, I got it now. Alright, now I got them started, and it's a good idea to kind of run them in a little bit farther, and but not make it snug, just in most of the way, so that you don't have to hold this with your thumb so much. Then we put all the other bolts in and run them up kind of till they just stop with your fingers. Okay, turn your ratchet if that's what you're using. Now you're going to have to bring this to just a little bit of snug. We'll turn this way. You have to do this in a cross pattern. So start here, then do that one a little bit snug, a little bit snug, a little bit snug, a little bit snug, a little bit snug. Cross pattern to make sure that this fits flat on here. So a little bit snug. A little bit snug. A little bit snug. Just a little bit snug. A little bit. A little bit. Now I know this face is sitting all the way flush against it and not cockeyed. So just go back and check them again. You're not going to tighten these a real lot, just a little. Okay, you're done there. Now we got to put together the rest of this. One last time, I would have flushed this. Just one more time, open it up, just let water go out. Now remember, 2 different springs, 2 poppets, 2 caps. The caps are interchangeable. The poppets are interchangeable. The springs are not. Whatever you do, don't get those mixed up. Let's just do the big one first, and then I'll do that one. Where's the heavy spring? That's the heavy spring. There's something I do with both of these. When you go to school, they teach you that these will stay the same amount all the time. Well, in the beginning, when you first put this in, this, remember, is trying to make a good pressured seal against here. Well, a little bit extra pressure in the beginning would probably be a little bit helpful till it gets some kind of at least the ability to close itself. So I take this, see the length here? I might pull it out just a little bit like that. Same with this one. Actually, I already stretched this one a little bit. It gives it just a little bit more pressure when you're first putting it together. Take the poppet. Remember, just rinse them off the last second. This is already lubricated. This has got to go in here. Now let me show you something else. See this surface? That's where this goes in. If you look, it's a little bit lopsided the way how it's drilled. Skinnier here, thicker here. So as you turn this, this is kind of probably moving like this. And sometimes it doesn't make a good seal against that seat. And the only way you're going to really know that is when you put it together and it's dripping, or when I put all my stuff together and get my meter going, I can tell that it's not holding back the pressure. So even though I'm putting in brand new stuff, rebuilding it, cleaning everything, sometimes when I put it all together, I test it, it doesn't work. It doesn't hold back the pressure as it's supposed to. I then just pull it apart and reseat it again, put it back in, and then hopefully the next time it will hold better. But without that meter, you're not going to know that. So, spring, poppet, cap. Remember, this is standing up. Put it in. Make sure it's kind of lined up. This has got to go in so it fits over the end of the poppet. Now, this is a little tricky because you got to hold it in and you got to get turned until you get the threads caught. And don't just the first time. Once you get it caught, turn it another 1 or 2. What you don't want to do is have it just barely caught. Boo! And there it goes across the lawn. Okay? Bring it down. Take your wrench, put it on. Remember, we're snugging this. Bringing it down until it just stops, and then just a hair more. Just a little snug. And then we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. Spring part, we already got this lubricated. Going to get it in straight. Line that up. Try and get it caught on threads. There we go. Run that all the way in. And tighten it. Little snug. Now, the valve is completely cleaned, put back together in the exact same condition it would be in now if you brought it from the store. The only thing you'd have to do from the store is screw it in here and screw it in there. I wouldn't, well, that takes a little bit of skill. Then naturally, a brand new one would have another test cock here. You would probably never use that test cock. It's not a big deal that that one's plugged, but that's a whole different explanation for that. So we now have it back together. Okay, we got it back together. I have it shut off on both ends. And at this point, what we want to do is get all the water through the valve and all the air out, because the air bothers this in the way how it works. So I'm going to take my screwdriver. I'm going to make sure that these are all open. Stand over to the side because you're going to make a lot of water come out, and turn them on. They are going to rocket water across the lawn. And then close them one at a time. 1, 2, 3. You just turn them halfway. Halfway is closed. This direction is open. That's all they do. And sometimes these are only opened once a year to get tested. And then maybe we'll, at some point like today where we're doing a repair, these have seals inside of them that will self-seal themselves. So you may turn this all the way off, but when you get done, there's a tiny little drip. Generally, within 2 hours, that drip will go away. Certainly overnight, it generally is gone. So now you've got this pressurized and all these closed. You're ready to go. You got all the air out of it. You turn on the supply. You got this on, so you got water coming in. You turn this back on, and now you got water going to the house. And you're good to go again. It didn't cost you much. You learned how to do it. You're happy. You're smiling. And you did it all by yourself. There are places online that you can buy the parts you need. This valve is an excellent valve. It is called a Wilkins 975XL. This is a 1-inch valve. There are other brands out there that I would not even work on, because when you get all done, the parts generally cost more than buying a new valve, and they don't work when you get done. The parts don't want to fit in it. This works well, extremely well. And you can get parts individually. You can buy the parts. Other brands, you have to buy a package of parts that's got a whole bunch of things in it that you don't want, you don't need, and you wind up paying a lot of money for it. Okay, hopefully that worked for you. If you have any questions, put it below. If you liked it, feel free to give me a like, thumbs up on there. If you want to subscribe, you can do that. When I get a chance, I'm going to try to do the other kinds of backflow valves that I have also, just to show you the different kinds of what you do. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye now.